And welcome back, everybody, to the Podcaster Nation. That's right. I said welcome back because I know you were just listening to our stuff and you came back for more. Folks, that was a fantastic decision. You're brilliant. It was great. Uh, this is the podcast that is about podcasters. It's for podcasters. It's done by podcasters. This is the place where we all come together to raise each other up. And this is the place where the rising tide raises all ships. So, folks, strap yourselves in. Get ready. This is going to be a fantastic interview. I've had the absolute pleasure of interviewing this gentleman before on one of my other podcasts. He has been gracious enough to come back and come on this one to talk to us about his movement, about his story, about everything going on in his life, even his merch, which we're going to find out about today, which is going to just be great. Please welcome to the show the author of Logan's story, the host of Logan's Voice, the podcast, the host of the YouTube program, Logan's Voice, and Rex Logan's dad. Please welcome Doug Ballinger to the show. Doug, how are you doing, brother?
I'm wonderful, Rory. Thank you for having me on this Podcaster Nation podcast.
Appreciate you coming on. You've got quite a story. You've had quite the movement, and brother, you've been doing a ton of work since long before I even met you. But just in the short period of time that I've known you, I mean, all kinds of stuff happening. We have a ton to dig into. Give everybody an idea. Who is Doug? Who is Logan? And what's that story?
Logan is my son, and I'm Doug Ballinger. I am Logan's dad. My son died May 19th of 2020 due to fentanyl poisoning. And after a few years of being in that dark abyss, I was finally rescued and saw the light at an event called Bridge the Gap a few years ago. And I have been involved with that organization intensely for the last few years. I now serve on the board of directors as the chair of development for that organization. We recently had our annual event where we had approximately 1,200 people. It's a little hard to count them because we can't make them all stand still long enough to count them all. But, but we had about 1,200 people there. And so what I do now is I use my voice because I just won't be quiet about this crisis that's killing so many people in our country. Nearly 300 people a day are dying in the United States. That's like an airplane crash a day from a poison drug supply. And we've got to do what we've got to do to raise awareness about that. And that's what I do. That's my voice, my son's voice. I am his voice.
Yeah, it's amazing the work that you've been doing. Just real quick, so that everybody understands what's out there. Of course, you wrote a book, okay, called Logan's Story,
I
and
did.
that's available. I bet you have a copy of it.
Look, I happen to have one that doesn't glare right here in front of me
There you go. So that's the book, Logan's Story, and that's available. Amazon and everywhere, right?
on Amazon. And that's my son's wings. That's our logo.
Nice. That book is. Tell us about the book. You know what it encompasses and why somebody would want to read that.
The book is about my son's life from birth. Actually, it's about me too, because I met his mom first, and that's in the book. Um, we were much better friends than we were married. Even after we got divorced, about 2 years in, we still remained very close friends because we both saw eye to eye on how to raise a child. And we had a child together, whether we were living in the same house or not. So, one of the things my aunt, one of the people I'm closest to in life, told me, don't ever talk bad about your wife in front of your child. And, you have to raise that child together. And so I had a conversation with Logan's mom, Gina, about that. And we agreed from that point on. The best part about our relationship is we had open and honest communication. Doesn't happen a whole lot. But the book goes into Logan being born, his struggles, and being diagnosed with ADHD at a young age. 6 or 7, he was already on ADHD medications. And so, in my hindsight, I believe that that's where he got the idea that take a pill will fix a problem.
Hmm.
And so, we never really addressed the underlying trauma or whatever it is that was called causing his ADHD. I have recently met a guy in Zafat, Israel, that teaches people, adult men, how to manage their ADHD without medications. He's an incredible teacher,
Hmm.
coach, life coach. His name is Ari. I actually did a podcast with Ari on Logan's voice from Zafat, Israel. Amazing man. But the story goes into Logan's struggles with substance use. And his drug of choice was heroin, injectable heroin. And on that fateful day in 2020, right after his mom had died in January, Mother's Day came around in May, and he was struggling with all the noise in his head about his mom being gone, about him struggling with sobriety. And so he went out. We had him scheduled to come to Arkansas, and he went out and got one more dose. I guess it was going to be one last hurrah to shut the noise down about his mom being gone and about everything he was going through. And even though he thought he was buying heroin, it was actually fentanyl, cocaine, and xylazine. And fentanyl is bad enough on its own. Xylazine is an animal tranquilizer, a non opioid animal tranquilizer. There is no antidote like there is with opioids. Naloxone is used to reverse the effects of an opioid overdose, and it's very successful. I was just reading some information in my little state of Arkansas with about 3 million residents. As of January 1st of 2025, going backwards to this, when the opioid money landed in our state for us to be able to do prevention, the reclamation money, 2,700 lives have been saved with the use of the Narcan that Arkansas Opioid Recovery Partnership has distributed through their HERO program. So the book talks about stigma and what we can do to reduce stigma, especially around mental illness and substance use, because it causes people to suffer in silence. They won't reach out for help because they're worried what people will think about them. From the day he died, the very first Facebook post I put out there was announcing my son's death due to an overdose. I didn't know at that time that it was fentanyl. I didn't even know how to spell fentanyl then or that it existed. Um, but it quickly became clear to me. I talk about things we can do to protect our mental health, how to create safe spaces for people, children mainly, to speak to their parents so that they don't hide even the tough things from them. It's easy to talk about the good things, the A I made in school today, but not the fact that, little Johnny that sits 2 rows over from me is pressuring me to take this happy pill. And that a lot of times is how the drug is passed from friend to friend in middle and high school. And so my book is to raise awareness, show the struggles that I've gone through, that my son went through, and to try to prevent other families from going through those same struggles.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I Hope you feel like you're succeeding at some level at this point. You've been doing this for a while. Seems like you've picked up a lot of steam.
I feel like I have picked up some steam. And I feel like people are hearing me. I've started a new Facebook group, which is Dads Against Deadly Drug Supplies, DADDS, for men, because you're well aware men grieve differently than women.
Oh yeah.
It's just a fact. It's the way we were raised, no doubt in my mind, but it just is what it is. And so many men suffer in silence. I had a cousin, first cousin, a few years back, right when fentanyl first started being a thing, who died from an overdose.
Hmm.
And his dad, my uncle, a Vietnam War vet, about 14 months after my cousin died, my uncle took his own life because of the thoughts of what he had done to his family through a divorce and not necessarily treating them right. And maybe that was the cause of Justin's, drug abuse. And he just couldn't handle it anymore. I did not want to get to that point, although I was very close at times. And then I found Hope Movement Coalition. And I went to an event called Bridge the Gap. It was here in Little Rock, right outside of the Clinton Library. There's a pedestrian bridge that goes over the Arkansas River there. And on that river, on that bridge, on one side was all the Lost Voices of Fentanyl banners. And on the other side was all the Can You See Me Now banners. There was about 45 banners in all. Thousands of faces staring back at me. On that bridge with somewhere around 700, 800 people, it was emotional. And I was incredibly broken at that point in my life. I saw those faces, and then I heard Stacey James start to call out names. And they were very obviously names of people that had died from this crisis. I'm a big man, a man, but tears were rolling down my face uncontrollably. And after she got done and kind of closed the memorial part of the event, I walked up to her and told her my son's name, asked her if she would read his name next time. And she hugged me on that bridge and said my son's name. And in that instant, all my broken pieces snapped back together. In that instant, I realized that my son was living through me, still here beside me, and that I had to do something about what's going on. So I became more and more involved. And now, oddly enough, I serve as the chair of development on the executive board for Hope Movement Coalition. Um, it's not volunteer work for me, it is my mission. I also do stuff outside of Hope Movement Coalition, like my podcast series, like my merch stuff, like my books, like speaking publicly to anyone that will listen. So
Nice.
that's me in a nutshell.
I appreciate you, Doug. I mean, we talked about the book, and what an impact that's had. The show us the merch before we get going any further, because I mean,
Oh,
honestly, the artwork is beautiful,
so that's the coffee cup.
right? And those are the
Kind of got a
wings.
glare on it. Those are his wings. And my son's wings, I believe in angels. I feel like his wings would be colorful. I, because he was a colorful person. He was artistic. He was joyous. He was very loud. Um, he loved music. He loved cars. He loved motorcycles, and he loved family and friends. And he fought for the underdog. So to see him in just white or gold wings just didn't do it justice. So, I worked until I could get wings that were more what I thought would be him. And that's those colorful painted wings.
Good for you. Good for you. I mean, they should fit. like that. So I'm glad. I'm very glad. The podcast that you do, Logan's Voice, the podcast. What do you talk about on the podcast? How do you use the podcast to further this whole mission?
Some of my podcasts, I talk about grief and things that we can do to let joy and grief walk hand to hand. They're not opposites of each other. So many times people get so embedded in the grief and depression that they can't see any joy in anything, not even how good a pizza tastes, without feeling some guilt that they're feeling joy when their child is gone, or brother or sister, or, whoever they've lost. And that's just simply not the case. And so, what I try to do is talk about grief, how to process it, how to ground yourself, and how to allow that joy and that light to come back into your life and carry it with you. Doesn't mean forgetting the person you lost. It means that they would want you to continue to live and to be happy and to be joyous, not to sit around and mope. So I talk about that. I've got several podcasts where I have interviewed other people that have lost loved ones, and I just allow them to tell them their story, much like you do for me.
Mhm.
And I talk about how to talk to teens and young adults on the dangers of fentanyl and the incredibly poisoned drug supply that is on our streets today that's killing our young people. I have one podcast where I talk about the day the war landed on my doorstep. And that's about when I found out that my son was dead. If he had made it another week, he would have been here in Arkansas. He would have been at a year-long rehab facility that is faith-based and a very good rehab facility, and incredibly reasonably priced. 5 years ago, the cost was $450 a month,
Hmm.
and that's just unheard of. But their success rate is very good. Um, so that's what my podcasts are about: trying to find joy in the darkness, trying to carry Logan's memory forward.
Now, I know the podcast is a little educational, because you are talking about the problem that's out there,
Yes, yes,
and you're also helping folks who have been through this kind of thing
yes.
to cope. So, definitely an educational situation. Um, the in terms of how who the podcast is aimed at. When you're talking on your podcast, are you talking to parents like you mostly? Or are you talking to folks who have never experienced it and need to know? Or are you talking to people who, need to make some changes like with the laws and things like that? I'm curious who it is you're picturing when you're talking on the podcast.
It depends on the day. So when I do my podcast, I might wake up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning with an idea in my head, and I sit down and try to bang out a script. I'm not as versed in just spewing stuff out without some kind of guidelines. So I bang together a script real quick, and once I'm happy with that, then I will speak it. Oftentimes not on script, but it keeps me going in the right direction. And if I'm talking about how to speak to young children, that's obviously aimed at the parents of young children. That's the generation we have to protect now. That's the ones we have to educate. That's the ones we have to break stigma so that they have safe places to talk to their family, whatever that trusted person is, whether it's a coach at school or, a beloved teacher. I know I had a teacher in third grade. When I had to go to fourth grade, I thought my world was over. I would have told her anything. So, that is talking to those parents. I talk to people in recovery and in active addiction and let them know that things are okay. You don't have to do this alone. We're here to stand by you. I'm not going to judge you. There's nothing you can tell me now that's going to upset me because I got the most upsetting news a father could ever get. And
Wow.
so, whatever you've got to say to me now is just, it's not going to phase me and I'm not going to judge you. When I talk about stigma, I talk to everyone because stigma is something that, again, causes people to suffer in silence. It isolates people into silos. It's no different than any other stigma for whatever reason. And it's prejudice. What stigma is prejudice with a new fancy name.
Hmm.
So I'll leave it at that. Um, I I find myself being more compassionate. Sometimes I do more compassionate podcasts where I just talk about my feelings and especially about how I view the world now. Before my son died, I had more road rage when somebody would not go at a four-way stop sign when I thought they should go. And now I'm just more chill because I don't know what that person in front of me who didn't push that red light because their mind went somewhere else. I don't know what they're thinking. So I give myself the grace to give them the grace to mosey on at their own leisure. In a grocery store, I'm more compassionate, especially to old people. I in my regular job, something that may have ended in March, I'm not really sure, but I'm an end of life doula. So I've escorted well over 100 people to the Rainbow Bridge. It has taken a toll on me, especially in this work. And my most cherished client that I had for 4 years as she was progressing through dementia passed on March 29th of this year. And that was a tough one for me. It took everything I had out of me, and I have not even been back in the building since then. So now I concentrate on advocacy. I'm still friends with her daughter. We're close friends. She is a big supporter of my advocacy, as was Cynthia.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sorry for all of these losses that you've had to suffer. You've been through a lot, brother.
It it is. PTSD is real.
Yeah. No,
Uh,
I know it is.
and I do talk about that sometimes on my podcast. When I first talked to you, it's
Hmm.
been months, I was doing one a day because that's how fast they were coming from wherever they were coming from. Um, I've slowed that down a little bit, but since the middle of April, I've put out 75 podcasts. Number 75 was last week. And
Wow.
then I kind of stopped for a minute because we had our big annual event and I was neck deep in dealing with the that kind of thing.
Right. Exactly. So, are you back at it with the podcast now?
I've been sitting here this morning thinking about a podcast, but I kind of put it on hold for today because I knew I was going to be talking to you.
Yeah. All right. Good deal. I got you. I got you. Well, I hope you don't stop it because I know it's helping a lot of folks. You're putting a lot
I
of good stuff out there.
absolutely. I've made some incredible contacts through my podcast.
Yeah.
I'm, I met a man. I want to talk about this for a second.
Yeah.
I did a podcast about stigma, and I met a man through my podcast in Middle Tennessee, and his name is Alan Vickers. He lost his son Chase to fentanyl poisoning in 2022. I hope I got that right. 2022. And Chase, Alan's son, his 8-year-old son is the one that found him unresponsive.
Oh.
So, now that little man has all that in his mind for the rest of his life. Alan and his wife Annie and the people surrounding that child are doing amazing work at protecting his mental wellness.
Wow.
um,
Yeah.
and so he has started an organization called Chase Fentanyl Away, which is an incredible use of his son's
It
name.
sure is. Absolutely.
And they do the same thing that we do here in Arkansas as Hope Movement Coalition, except they're more in the harm reduction lane than we are, even though we do distribute in the lock zone. Allen and Chase Away Fentanyl distribute in the lock zone and test strips, and they do what they can to raise awareness and fight this battle in Tennessee.
Wow.
So I
This
met
is,
him. Yeah.
yeah, no, I was just going to say, this is, I mean, it is very much a nationwide battle. That sounds like the podcast has afforded you the opportunity to meet these people and
Yes.
connect with
And
them.
once he heard my End Stigma podcast, and it was just an audio podcast, and he reposted it on his Facebook page, and he told all of his followers, and he's got thousands, to listen to it and how important it was. And I just reached out and thanked him for sharing it. And then we started talking on Messenger. And when I tell you that after the death of a child, especially a traumatic loss like a poisoning, there's more compassion, even between men. So we started talking. I love the man like a brother at this point, and I asked him to be on a podcast. So he tells his story on on one of my podcasts, and I did a video podcast for him.
Nice.
And he tells a story about perspective and how Chase, the son, and his wife were kind of at odds. It was Chase's stepmom. And she asked him, why do you always pick the same fork in the road when you could go right and everything would be wonderful and you always pick left? And Chase's response to her was, what if the only choice you thought you had was to go left?
Hmm.
And that, in a nutshell, is what addiction is. The once once addiction takes over the brain, then the beast that is created in there demands more. Because if you don't go get some more, I'm going to make your life miserable. You're going to be in pain.
Yeah.
That's why detox centers are so crucially important in rescuing people from this crisis.
Yeah.
But to hear him tell his story and all the wonderful things he's doing in Tennessee to raise awareness, and we may have a chance to speak standing next to each other at a high school in Middle Tennessee. We're still working on that.
Oh, that's excellent. I'd love to see that. The yeah, you're getting out and doing some public speaking then too.
A little bit.
Yeah. Is that new since the last time I talked to you?
Newish,
Newish. That's fair.
newish. I've done public speaking in the past, but mainly about dementia and Alzheimer's, that kind of thing. So now my voice has jumped to the next lane, which is to speak about addiction, recovery. I want to always celebrate people that are in recovery. To to admit that you have an issue and to seek help and do that sacred work of maintaining sobriety, it's a lot for somebody.
Yeah.
And I want them to know that I'm a safe place if they need somebody to talk to. I don't care what time of the day or night it is. Um, they don't have to walk through it alone. That's You're not alone. That is our mantra at Hope Movement Coalition.
Yeah. Well, obviously you're reaching some folks, and you're doing the podcast. You mentioned, of course, it's the the audio that you have out there, but you also have put the video now on YouTube that's
Yes.
out there. So is that the same podcast or are those slightly different shows? Are you putting the same podcast on both?
Same podcast on both. Through the magic of RSS feeds, whatever that is, I don't even really comprehend how I managed to put that together. But when I put my
Uh,
podcast out there, I go through Spotify and I drop it there, and it pushes it out all over the planet.
yeah.
And it's magic, and I'm okay with that. Um, but then I have to go back and if I'm putting a video one out there, the RSS feed doesn't feed to YouTube the video; it just feeds the
Right.
audio portion. So I have to go delete that one off of YouTube and put the video version out there.
Gotcha.
And so I've done that a few times. I haven't done as many video ones as I'm planning on doing, but I do have some people in my orbit on schedule to do video podcasts. One mom from Northwest Arkansas who actually worked so diligently with the DEA that they ended up getting a conviction for the person that sold her son the pill that killed him. And
Wow.
he took 1/4 of the pill, 1/4 of the pill, and it killed him. But
Absolutely
they
awful.
got a conviction. He was sentenced to over 73 years in prison. And he is in his early 20s with a young son. So, no chance of parole for 26 or 28 years. I can't remember exactly. But I've got her scheduled to do it. I met a man in Oklahoma that we're working on pinning down a scheduled time to do a podcast. But between the video ones, I will continue to do just audio only.
I see. Okay.
Then I don't have to go to hair and makeup.
Whatever works for you.
Right?
It's funny. When I first started, I did that. Any solo episodes, I just did just audio. And the only time I did a video was if I interviewed somebody.
Right.
Yeah.
It just feels natural.
Right. And so that's how I started for a while. I don't blame you. You know, it's a lot easier to do the audio episodes when you can just be sitting here in the dark and no one has to see what you look like.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I have a face for radio. So
Listen to you. Well, you got merch though for video. You got to get that out now.
I do have merch.
Yeah,
On my website, I have a Shopify store and there's a link on logansvoice.com that gets you to there. I even have shoes.
oh my goodness.
I'm just going to pick this one up and show you because I wore these shoes for 16 hours Saturday because
Look at this. Oh my gosh.
they're purple.
That's beautiful.
Um, I
With the
haven't worn
wings.
high tops since I was a child, and I forgot how hard it is to get your feet in and out of them because you have to really untie them to get them off. Um, I'm in old man mode now where I come home and just kick my shoes off.
Yeah,
But
I was
those
gonna
I
say.
have to take a little more effort. But we've got all kinds of merch. T-shirts. I just dropped a bunch of sweatshirts and long sleeve shirts out there yesterday.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, whatever it takes to keep getting the word out. So,
And they have the wings on them. So here's another one.
oh, it's nice.
I mean,
Yep.
I love the wings. This one I made a friend wear at our event because that QRC code goes to my merch store.
I see.
Um, and we got a few orders, so I'm happy with that.
Good for you. That's wonderful. Now you've done 75 episodes of the podcast, right? So I
Yes.
mean, you've been doing this for a minute. You're no longer a rookie. You're an accomplished podcaster here with that kind of number, which is beautiful. On your way to 100. And as you've been doing the podcast, how do you go about promoting the podcast? Since you also have a book you're promoting and a movement and YouTube and everything else, how do you go about getting the word out about, hey, come check out our podcast?
So I put it on my Facebook page,
Hmm.
and from there, I belong to a lot of groups that focus on sobriety, on overdose awareness. And so I will go and share that to 26 to 30 different groups, depending on the topic. Some topics are not appropriate for some groups, and I
Sure.
100% understand that.
Yeah.
But then, people start to pick it up and comment on it. I used to try to direct people through logansvoice.com because somebody told me I needed to drive website traffic. It was not producing any numbers, any listeners.
Right.
I think I had 4 subscribers. Um, but then once I realized that there was this YouTube thing and my stuff was going there anyway, and it was easier to just get a link off of the YouTube podcast and pop it into Facebook because it would populate the cover to it
Oh
and
yeah.
everything. And people, one click, it's easier to get them there. My goal is to get them there, to get their attention, to have them listen to the information. I try to keep them around 15 minutes. Sometimes they go 20, 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're, 12 or 13 minutes. But I think in this day and age, our attention span as a society has shrunk down to next to nothing.
Yep.
So you kind of have to get a hook in there and reel them in for a minute. But I get all kinds of good feedback. I've never had any negative feedback on any of my podcasts.
Excellent. Good for you. Yeah, that's excellent. And nor should you. It's a very good podcast. You do a good job with it. I appreciate you sharing that though, in terms of how you share it.
Yeah,
The Facebook groups is actually where you and I met for the first time
it
in
is.
one of
It
those
is.
Facebook groups. Yeah,
And
exactly.
I don't know that the way I'm doing it is the best way to do it, but it's what's working right now. So I'm going to keep going.
And sometimes you just trust the empirical evidence. It's like if it's working, keep going.
I joined a group here just the other day that I met at our annual event. And it's Arkansas Podcasters. So they have an
Oh,
association of podcasters here in Arkansas with studios that you can go in and use.
oh wow.
With my dining room is no longer a dining room; it's my command center,
Right.
and so that's where I spend the majority of my time.
Nice. Nice. I got you. Well, now when you go back to podcasting, are you planning on picking up where you left off with like just throwing them out there one a day type of thing if the spirit hits you? Or are you, trying to be a little more, planning them out?
I I would like to drop the 100th episode on September 23rd, which is my son's birthday.
I see. You're backing into it then like that. I got you.
So I'm trying to get to, and that only came to me a couple of weeks ago that I was like, hey, I'm not that far off. So then I get, my math machine out and calculate how many I would have to do. And I think it's achievable, but I don't really plan my podcast as much as it comes to me in quiet thoughts and reflections. I may
Sure.
wake up with just a burning idea in my mind and have to go and speak it into a microphone.
Right. Are you using AI for any of your stuff? I know a lot of podcasters are asking about that, whenever I have folks on, but are you implementing AI in anything or are you doing it the old fashioned way?
I do use AI sometimes because it makes me sound a lot more professional and smarter than I normally would. The ideas are all mine, and I may spend an hour or two arguing with AI about what a script's going to look like. And no, you need to go back and do it and add this component or that component. But I eventually scrape it off into a Word document, change a bunch of it, and then go.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Now, with this many episodes and more on the horizon and 100 before September, which is the way you're looking at it in there, have you had an opportunity to monetize the podcast or is that something that you haven't looked into yet or are you doing it now?
I don't know how to monetize it. I wouldn't be opposed to monetizing it, but what I don't want to do is charge people to hear my podcast.
Hmm.
I know that I joined Substack. It's very confusing to me. it seems that they have a podcast platform and they have a news feed and then they have information that goes out and they're all about monetizing the message.
Hmm.
That's the impression I get. So when I put stuff on Substack, I don't really know how it's going. But a friend of mine from Northwest Arkansas called me and said, "You have got to be on Substack." And I was like, "I don't know what that is." And so she talked to me for an hour telling me what it is. And look, here, go here. Let me show you some of these things. So I did, and there are some wonderful things on there. There's nobody on there that I could find talking about fentanyl poisoning and overdose awareness
Wow.
or the death of their child. Um, and I don't push every episode to Substack because, frankly, I don't think about it as much.
Sure.
But no, I would like to learn more about monetizing it. I don't think my following is big enough at this point. Maybe I could find a sponsor eventually.
Hmm.
But that is my goal is to get the message out, not necessarily to monetize.
Sure. No, it makes sense. I understand. I do. I always the folks on this show. I usually ask them a corny question as we kind of go, and you may have answered this already, to be honest with you.
I
So
like corny questions.
that's right. When it comes to doing the podcast itself, what is it that you love the most about doing the podcast, and what is it that you just absolutely throw it out the window, despise the most about doing the podcast?
What I love about it the most is putting the words together that I'm going to speak into the microphone
Hmm.
and the thought process that goes behind it, and then actually speaking it into the microphone. What I hate the most about it is when I'm 3 or 4 minutes in and my tongue gets wrapped around itself and I just start, and I will just go and delete that whole segment and start over and re-record it. Sometimes, and usually my podcasts are, 5 or 6 segments, 3 minutes, 4 minutes each. And I don't know what everybody uses to record, but I have this little microphone icon that came resident on my computer, and that's what I use. And so when I'm recording and I can hear myself get tongue tied or mispronounce a word, and one day I was really getting mad because I kept, 3 minutes in tripping over the same word. Finally, I just scratched that whole sentence out. It
Right.
wasn't as necessary as I thought it was. That's the most daunting part of it is because I want it to sound professional. I want it to sound coherent. I don't want it to be me jumbling around. When I do podcasts with other people, then that's a whole different story. The We're all human and those mess ups and those little things, sometimes I edit them out, sometimes I don't.
Nice. Nice. And I can totally identify with that. I don't edit at all because I used to do that. Sometimes I would, sometimes I wouldn't. And now I'm like, if it messes up, we're just going
Just
with
let it go.
it.
It's
We're riding with
reality.
it.
Yeah, like reality TV.
You got it, 100%. So I really appreciate you coming on and talking about all this and of course, getting your message out. I love the way you're using your podcast for it. The as you're moving forward and you're continuing the podcast, is there another book in our future? Is it more podcasting? Where do you see Doug and the Rex Logan's dad, Logan's story, Logan's voice? Where do you see that movement going in the next 12 months to 5 years?
There is another book in the work right now,
Okay.
and that's all I'm going to say about that.
That's it.
Uh,
I like the dramatic pause. I was like,
it has a lot to do with the podcast topics,
okay.
and it's going to be less about him and more about raising awareness and things we can do to protect our mental health and exercises that we can do with ourselves to calm ourselves down when we get elevated or activated by
Hmm.
something that's not going right. There's crim techniques that we can use ourselves and on each other to de-escalate situations so easily, ways to ground yourself. Something as simple as walking outside, taking your shoes off, and let your feet touch the planet for a few minutes. It's just something grounding about that.
Yeah.
Sitting in the silence and letting the silence speak to you, because sometimes silence will scream at you. And learning how to handle those kind of things. That's what the next book is focusing on.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we're any time frame on that? We're definitely going to be looking for that.
It may not come out until the spring.
Okay.
Like Logan's story came out right around my birthday in April.
Hmm.
And so number 2 might be out in April of next year. It may be later than that.
Okay. I
I've
got you.
got some other big things coming at me that I'm needing to spend time on in my advocacy work. I've recently connected with another group of fathers that asked me to be part of that situation, and that's recent. I'm still trying to figure out what that looks like, and I'm just trying to grow the dads group on Facebook right now because I think that us men need to have a safe space to be open and honest, whether we're there speaking the truth or just listening.
Yeah.
Either way is fine.
Yeah. Absolutely. I totally understand that. That's for sure. I love that. That's all part of the mission. I really do. As we kind of pull this together and wrap this up, I love what you're doing with your movement, and it sounds like you've got expansion on the mind and helping even more people as you go, which is also great. I usually wrap things up on this show with, especially when I'm talking to someone like you who has, knocked out 75 episodes already. You're on your way to 100, and you're killing it. Um, I usually end with a question of what's your best advice to podcasters that are out there who are not quite where you are yet?
I actually get that question from people. People have called me and asked me how to do podcasts. And
Hmm.
what I tell them is you have to figure out what your mission is, what your topic is. My topic revolves around my son and the fentanyl crisis and grief and recovery. Some people talk about cars. Some people talk about guns. Um, find your topic, learn everything you can about it, and then just start spilling it into the microphone. But remember to hit record.
Some grounded advice right there from Doug at the end. Don't forget to hit record. I love it, man. I
That
really do.
has happened.
Has that really happened to you?
Oh, yeah. And it was a flawless 10-minute rant. And then I look up and there was no file there. And I was like, are you kidding me? And the mouse
Oh,
was
no.
still hovering over the record button. So, yes, remember to hit record
That's right. I think all of us have done that at least once, but most of us only do it once because we never
once,
forget it. Right.
once, right?
Exactly right. All right. All right. I love it. I appreciate you so much. And when you get that other book coming out or you have some other big movement, I hope you'll come back on one of my shows and we'll get you back out there. Make
I
sure you keep in
absolutely
touch.
will. I appreciate you having me on your shows.
You got it. You got it. So, hey, folks, Doug Ballinger, Rex Logan's dad, author of Logan's Story, host of Logan's Voice. Doug, it's been great. It always is. I love your mission, and I'm sorry that you have it. Of course, that you have to do it. But what you've done with with your grief and with his memory and everything else is just unbelievable. And I know that he loves what you're doing too. So just
I
keep it up,
believe that.
brother. Keep it
I
up.
believe that. Thank you so much, Rory.
Yeah, been great having you on. Folks, another fantastic episode of The Podcaster Nation with another powerful podcaster. And the reason that we have these wonderful people on here is because this is the podcast that's about podcasters, it's for podcasters, and it's done by podcasters. Folks, I hope that we showed you yet again today that this is truly the place where the rising tide raises all ships. So keep sailing.